I should be on there now.
Do you have yeah. Good morning, everybody. This is Kevin Dawson with Coffee with Democrats. We're coming to you live from Summer Coffee in Edmond, Summer Moon Coffee um, in Edmond, Oklahoma. We're so excited to be here with you, and we are here live with Jena Nelson. So thank you, Jena, for being here with us. It's such a great opportunity. We've been catching up since before this Twitter space, so we're really excited to have you come on with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, this is a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit more. The last time we were kind of in a rush. There was a campaign taking place, and even though the campaign didn't go the way that everybody wanted it to on the friendship side that I have, and I'm sure on yours as well, you've still got a great opportunity coming forward for the future. And your activism is actually helping other teachers. And you're also involved with promoting public education. And this whole voucher scheme is becoming an issue for a lot of people. And you're bringing facts and truth to that whole argument. We appreciate you you being at the tip of the spear for that. I've got a couple of things that I would ask for listeners on housekeeping. Would you please go to your Twitter space or down at the bottom, I guess it's actually at the top, and share that you're on this space with us so that we can get more people to join in and listen in, because we really enjoy having these conversations. We want to spread this conversation to more people. Now that we've got the housekeeping stuff out of the way, let's just kind of step back a little bit and let's just have just a general conversation. Tell us a little bit more about Jena Nelson. What was where were you born and raised, kind of your upbringing? What brought you to being such a big advocate for public education?
Well, I was raised in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, down in the southeastern corner before it became cool and a tourist attraction. And, I went to school there at Leucata Public Schools. Shout out to Leucata if anyone knows where that's at. It is a K through 8 school with amazing teachers. And then I went to Broken Bow High School with, again, a set of amazing teachers. And I had a teacher named Mr. Stephen Smallwood who changed my life and kind of set me on the course that I'm in here now. And then, I went out of state and went to school and then got the wonderful opportunity to come back to Oklahoma. And I have been a business owner. I have been a casting agent. I have been a teacher. And, I love public education because of all the opportunities that it provides. I love how it changes and saves lives of the children that are in our school buildings every single day. I love how it's the great equalizer in our nation. That, we are also the only occupation that creates every occupation in the world. And, for me, seeing the magic that teachers do every day, seeing the kids that thrive in our schools, seeing the stories and knowing what they have to overcome, and even my own personal struggles and seeing how public school saved my life. That's what made me a strong public school advocate, because, it's public school is more than test scores. Right. It's more than a rating, and it's more than a letter grade, A through F. It is about the everyday changes and the everyday things that teachers and administrators and cafeteria workers and bus drivers and our parents are doing every single day to make our country better. And so that's why, for me, standing up and using what little voice or platform that I have has been so important, because someone stood up for me.
Right.
And I was a little old nobody, extremely poor. But someone encouraged me and showed me that if I can use my voice, if I can get out and advocate on behalf of others who haven't found theirs yet, well, then that's how we make things better. And so that's why I am such a strong and loud public education advocate.
So we're going to ask you a few more questions. I've got one more piece of housekeeping. For those people who are on the Twitter space and want to ask a question of Jena, we're not going to be able to get to you live to be able to ask that question for you to ask it personally. But if you would, take your question, post it down into the corner, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions that come up as we go through this conversation. So you talked a little bit about your education. Let me back up just a little bit. You graduated from Broken Bow High School, and then you went to college.
I did.
Where did you go to college at?
So I went to Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Oh, good. Yes.
So my high school teacher, Mr. Smallwood, actually brought in a professional Broadway dancer, and he went to he was a professor there at Northwestern, and he recruited me out of Broken Bow to go to college on a full scholarship. And I was the first in my school, first in my family to even go to college. And this was a big thing for me.
Yes.
Not only to go and experience, a different state, but different cultures and some of the best food I've ever had.
Oh, good. Let's go ahead and we're getting some feedback that the barista noise was a little bit loud, so we can kind of shelter that a little bit. So when you went to school, that's such a wonderful conversation that I can relate to, being the first person in your family going to college. And your expectation at that point was just probably, I just want to get a degree. I just want to get through this. But it sounds like you kind of exceeded your own expectations a little bit.
Well, I think that is something about, people from Oklahoma, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it.
There you go.
And, especially I think people from rural areas that, if you're given an opportunity, you're supposed to walk through the door. And so for me, going to school and meeting all these different people from all over the country and getting to, to experience things like at 18, I didn't have any more sense, but I walked into an audition and ended up going and singing at Carnegie Hall with a group of people. And, that is something that I never expected to do, but I was taught, from my teachers that, when you get an opportunity, you go for it and you try. And all they can do is tell you no. And, I'm a person that, I've had a lot of setbacks in my life. I've had a lot of struggles in my life, but you still have to go out and try.
Right.
And so, here I am at, 18 years old with, no business standing on the stage at Carnegie Hall. But I did.
Yeah.
And, and it was just one thing after another. You're kind to, people. You show up, you show them that you are committed, you show them you have a good work ethic. And one opportunity led to another.
Right.
And, that's something that I try to instill in my own children as well, is that, you show up, you work hard, and you're kind to people, because you never know what opportunities lie ahead of you and how you can help others as well.
Right. So that's just such a wonderful testament about your upbringing, and that you did go to Carnegie Hall and you did get that invitation. And that's such a wonderful thing. But again, you exceeded all the expectations you probably ever had for yourself. At the same time, you gotta, kind of puff up your chest a little bit and say, yes, I did this. This is such a wonderful thing to do.
I always just look at things. I always say that I'm kind of the mini Pearl of any experience. I'm just so proud to be here. I felt that way during the campaign. I'm just so proud to be there and speak with folks and talk to Oklahomans. And I felt that way about my life as well, because, I did come from a home that was full of abuse and trauma. And so you can, I had that opportunity that I could have wallowed in that, and I could have limited myself, or I could find the joy. I could find the joy that was out there. And, meeting people and experiencing kindness from others and then reciprocating that kindness, I think that really has pushed me to do a lot of things that maybe I'm not really comfortable with. And I'm obviously, I wasn't comfortable for, running for office. That's nothing I ever thought about doing before. But when you see a need, you've got to try and fill that need.
Right.
Because there are people out there that are hurting that need you to open that door. And if you get to a position where you can ride that elevator up, you better send that elevator back down to help some others
There
get
you
back
go.
down as well.
And so after college, and you had these wonderful experiences in college, you went and got your teaching certificate.
Oh, I actually didn't. I was actually, I kind of went in a different direction. I was working as a casting agent, and I worked with major motion pictures, and I was working with contracts, and that was actually teaching acting to actors and models. And then I got a call at the agency one day, and they said they were looking for someone to come and do classes in an inner city school, do some acting classes for boys and girls club. And I said, well, I'll go do it. I don't, and all of a sudden I'm walking in, and just within that first hour of working with those kids, it's like something just snapped at me, and I realized that's what I need to do. And so then I started pursuing getting that education certificate, and I happened to have a friend who called me up. She said, hey, I'm going on maternity leave. Could you come in and teach my theater classes for me? So it was just like one thing after another of where you're supposed to be.
An opportunity leads to an opportunity leads to
Yes, an opportunity leads to an opportunity, but also just staying open so that you have those opportunities. And I think that that's important for people to realize, is that sometimes they think, well, my career path is from point A to point B. Your career path is like a tree.
Right.
You start in one direction, but it's going to branch out, and you just have to stay open for those opportunities and experiences as well. And so that's what led me into teaching, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And working with children, I realized that even though I was their teacher, I actually learned more from them. And there's a great quote from Rodgers and Hammerstein that says, by our pupils will be taught. And I really found that to be true, is that I learned more about myself, my communities, my world through the eyes of the children that sat in my classroom.
That is so inspiring. In fact, you already have a comment on here by a listener. It looks like it's from Nikki Howell. And this comment says, you are the best at teaching people at any age to find joy and their passion. Thank you for never giving up on students, no matter what age.
Oh my gosh, my heart is so full. Thank you so much for that kindness.
Well, I can honestly say that, I've been kind of watching my dad adapt through this process of Coffee with Dems and listening and, learning. And he's my father. And so as a daughter, there's going to be a little bit of like, how much of this is he, But when I went with him and my mother to some listening parties the night of the election, I was lucky to be at yours. And one of the things that I came out of that night was that I wanted to learn more. Because, again, I think that naivety is a choice. I think that ignorance is a choice. And that was a choice I made for a very long time into my early adulthood years. Is I chose to stay ignorant because I was afraid of what knowledge was going to teach me. I have a lot to learn now. I got a lot to learn. But the compassion that I felt in the room when I went to your watching party was absolutely inspiring to me, which is why I've even joined this journey with my dad to come and educate myself more on it, because I know that there's a good space in this. I think that we're villainized. I think that a blue shirt is villainized in some ways as libs. They're villainized in a way in some aspects as a whole. But when you're fighting, that's just kind of what you hear anyways. And two parties are fighting against each other. When I felt the compassion in the room, I knew I wanted to be on board.
Right.
Well, that's very kind. The way I looked at that campaign, it was never going to be about a fight. It was going to be a conversation, because it was, first of all, it was an opportunity for me to go around the state and talk about the real issues that were facing educators and families and, from all parts of the state. Because, the things that were happening in the urban areas of Oklahoma are very different from the challenges that our rural areas and our suburban areas are facing as well. And that, I think, is important, is that show up and listen. I think a lot of times when you're on, you're a politician, or if you're on the trail, you talk and talk and talk. And I understand, that's part of the gig.
Right.
But there's a time where you've got to stop and you've got to listen, because a lot of our rural areas they feel neglected right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the issues that they're facing are not the shiny hot button issues that a lot of Democrats want to face
Right.
and want to focus on. And they feel left out because of that. And so what we really need to do is focus on bringing people together, but also acknowledging that, yes, we've got to address the needs in Western Oklahoma, and Eastern Oklahoma, and Central Oklahoma, Northern and Southern Oklahoma. And we have to have a strategic way of bringing people together. And the first step is to listen, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, and find where we have the commonalities. And then how can we work together on those differences? And so, I'm not one to be polarizing. That's just not who I am in nature. Because, I want to hear points of view from all different people. And because I'm an Oklahoman,
Right.
and I understand as an Oklahoman that there are a lot of things that we need help with, but the rhetoric gets in the way.
Sure.
And so we have to take the time to truly listen to one another and try and find ways to connect, build, and to come together on some things. We're never going to come together on everything. That's impossible.
Right.
But quality of life for Oklahoma should be a priority for Democrats and Republicans. We need to focus more on revenue, dealing with the issues of poverty, because the issue of poverty affects everything that goes from mental health issues to education to workforce development. We've got to tackle poverty, and that means we need to tackle revenue.
And part of the reason we have poverty is because of lack of education.
Absolutely.
Or say maybe not a lack of education, but struggles within education to get people the proper background or experiences to be able to excel and get out of that cycle. It seems like that families get themselves into. And
education is the cornerstone of everything. If you make investments in education, you are making those early investments in workforce development, in healthcare, in everything. And when I talk about education, it's also investing in making sure that we have well-paid teachers and staff, and parents, everyone needs to be supported. Because we want our kids to be well-rounded people who can be critical thinkers. We want them to have opportunities beyond their post-secondary world. And that means that we have to focus on investing in education.
so I'm going to kind of go back a little bit. I'm kind of a linear person. I like to start with a biography and just work our way through. So you were a casting agent. You went back to school. What was your first teaching assignment? Where were you at when that happened?
My first teaching assignment was East Baton Rouge Parish. And so I worked.
So you were in Louisiana.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I got a great education because those students had a lot of needs.
Right.
Those students, they faced a lot of issues, a lot of problems.
You witnessed a lot of diversity you wouldn't have in Broken Bow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The first day of getting my role was an education in itself because EAUX is a very different sound than a lot of things. So, but they were just wonderful. And one of the great things about being a teacher is that you can keep up with your students. And now, those kids that have so many struggles and so many issues, they have families of their own and they're doing well. And, I continue to cheerlead them and support them from Oklahoma. And I'm so proud of the things that they are doing and accomplishing in their lives. And, for me, it's just a wonderful feeling.
So I used to work out of Livonia. So that I'm kind of familiar with that area, and I also am familiar with the public education system in Louisiana. When I was asked to move to Louisiana, I did not do that. I didn't go down there. Part of the reason I didn't go down there was because at the time I had small children, and I was looking at their educational opportunities, and I was told point blank, if you're going to get a good education in Louisiana, you better go to a private school. That was the facts back then. I mean, that was 20 years ago.
So they actually started the whole charter movement, voucher movement a lot earlier than other people. And now what we're seeing is exactly what you're saying, and they're trying to backtrack on it. They're trying to fix some of those issues because it didn't work. What it did is it created more disparities within schools. The haves and the have-nots were separated. They tried to say, oh, the charter school, you can do this, but you've got to provide your own transportation, or you've got to pay this, that, and the other. And so, they really are trying to now fix that, whereas we're trying to head straight into it.
Right.
And, we've already seen the data. We've seen what has happened. And so for me, as an educator, as an education, I want to see history repeat itself, and I've already seen what happens.
Right.
And I think that, really and truly, that making those investments in those schools is going to help that state because Louisiana has a lot to offer. It's a wonderful state with wonderful people that once again, you've got to make those investments in education.
So a little bit of housekeeping again, folks. If you are listening in, please share that you're listening to the space so that we can get more people to join in with this conversation. So one of the things that I did shy away from, and one of the big reasons why I shied away from going to Louisiana was the private school at the time. Our children, even though none of my children were identified, they still had to audition or be somehow accepted. It was like you don't get a real choice. You have to go and be interviewed by the people at the school before your children would be allowed to be in that private school. So that's kind of one of the issues that hits home to me when people start talking about vouchers and this whole scheme of privatization is it's a public school killer. It's going to destroy rural Oklahoma. It's going to destroy the opportunities for businesses to come in because businesses want well-educated people.
They do.
People that can, even the basics of reading and writing we're missing if we don't have a good solid public education. So I was just, that was one of the things that drew me away from Louisiana. And we ended up moving at that point to northern Kansas. At the point I was out in Green River, Wyoming. And my kids were really young at that point. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with all that stuff that's going on. So I kind of understand, and I have that fear of what privatization is going to have with our schools. So I'm a public school advocate. All of my children did go to public school. My wife, who was a stay-at-home mom, because we were moving around so much, when we ended up moving to Marysville, Kansas, she ended up going into the public school with the children and kind of growing within public education. She started as a
Paraprofessional.
Well, she was a monitor for the playgrounds first, then she was paraprofessional, and then she became the secretary of a high school in Andover, Kansas, when we went to Andover. So she is a big advocate for public education. She's got a huge number of friends in multiple states because she's done that in Marysville, Kansas, Andover, Kansas, Salem, Illinois, and then she came here and she's working for the University of Oklahoma. So that's how public education has helped advance her, but it's also helped with all of my children. I have 3 children who went to public education and then pursued they pursued degrees, they pursued careers. It was all because of public education, just like what I did when I graduated.
So your daughter works in public education as well.
Yeah, my oldest daughter, she's an educator, teaching 5th grade up in northern Kansas. So it is near and dear to our family. So going back to, I got off track there a little bit. I've really talked about myself, and I should have been talking more about you, and I apologize.
You're doing great.
So, how did you get? What was your last assignment as a teacher? Where were you located?
So the last one I was teaching English in class in middle school.
In Oklahoma City.
Yes, before that I was in Deer Creek.
Deer Creek. Okay. And what did you do there?
So I was a composition teacher, but then I was also then I moved to a student support coordinator. So I worked with tier 3 students and really kind of developed programs not only for academics, but for social development and also for parents.
I do have a question that was sent to us by Steve, the co-founder. We're going to try and kind of shift just a little bit because we're talking about public education, and we were talking about your experiences in public education. We got to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to the violent, the shootings that have taken place down in Uvalde and places like that. Started, I think, the first one that I really became aware of was Columbine and what took place there. But what are Oklahoma schools doing now to protect students, faculty, and just people that are in and out of the public schools now? What are they doing to prevent that kind of gun violence from taking place in our schools? Do you have a good feel for that?
Well, obviously, when I was in the classroom, we have to think about this daily. Yeah. We have to think about this is something that you never thought you'd have to think about, and then when you're in a situation, you have to think about it. So this is complex. So first of all, we have this issue that stems from everything that happens outside of our classroom.
Sure.
But then once again, the school systems are now having to deal with it. So I would say a lot of our schools have safety protocols that they are constantly practicing. I know that as a teacher, we had everything from modified lockdown drills, keeping our classroom doors shut. A lot of our schools have one entrance for people to come in. A lot of schools have fob systems, but some of them don't. And that, once again, this comes back to funding. We have got to make sure that schools have funding for safety. Some schools have the ability to have metal detectors, some have the fob systems, some have all different kinds of things that they can use. Obviously, we do have hotlines that people can turn in tips and things like that. But we have to look at this in other ways too, because there's only so much that schools can do. So the first thing that people need to realize is that if it is a student that brings a weapon on campus, so they already know the protocols. Right. They know the protocols. Right. They know what's going to happen, how much time.
They're a part of the same drills.
Yes, they are part of the same drills. Okay. And we look at people who come from outside. They're obviously having to either force their way in, or come in through the front door somehow. But it's always an interesting issue of how people start playing the blame game on education and educators for different things that happen, when we need to start looking at the issues that happen outside of the school, focusing on poverty, focusing on mental health issues, making sure that that people who are known to have issues don't have access to things that are going to harm our children. And some people think that we should arm teachers. We absolutely should not be arming teachers. And I will put it this way. Not long ago, we just heard a news report of a 6-year-old who brought a weapon in and shot his teacher. Now, teachers already are victims of a lot of violence within their schools. And I will tell you as a teacher, and this gets me a little bit because I could not imagine having to point a weapon at a student.
No. Right.
Okay. No. And I know this is very touchy with people, but I think that investing money so that we have secure schools is very important, but investing money in our communities as well to focus on poverty and mental health is also very important. It can't just be one group of people's responsibility to keep everyone safe. We have to work together as a community.
Sure.
We've got to work together. Parents need to work with us as well, because if it is a student, a lot of times issues that come with that start on social media, which we don't have access to. And so we have to all work together as a community, as families, as educators, to come up with common sense safety protocols that fit each individual school. Because there are things out in rural Oklahoma that will work for them that may not work in our urban areas. And we've got to have some common sense about it and really start having conversations as a community.
I've not been in the education system or even on tech. I think I've been, again, pretty naive to a lot of these things. Do local police forces or anything like that? Did local police work with the schools at all for those drills?
So it's been my experience. I've actually been in training where the police department comes in and they're using blanks, and I will tell you, it's one of the scariest things.
Scared straight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so yes, they do work with us, and there are even programs as I was traveling around the state and talking to people that police departments are working more closely with our school systems to let them know, hey, we had an issue this weekend with one of your students, and so we've got to continue to have communication. We cannot sweep things under the rug. I think that there's a tendency for a lot of districts and things to kind of sweep things under the rug. Don't do that. Let's have conversations. Let's keep people in know so that speculation doesn't happen, so that issues don't happen. And once again, it comes down to communication, investments, and working together as a community.
I'm going to call on Steve he's got his hand raised. We're going to see if we can hear you. We got a lot of background noise here, but go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. So can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Jena. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks so much also for getting on. I think it was either last week or the week before with Jeff Piper. Yeah, we really appreciate you getting on and providing your input.
Oh, absolutely. Jess and I, we talk a lot on TikTok, and we're just trying, to spread the news about issues that we think are really important to our communities.
So one of the things I'd like to make everyone aware of, I think most people are familiar with red flag laws, and those are laws where law enforcement would have credible information. For instance, we're talking about schools, that a student, or maybe even not a student, is threatening to come to a school and do harm with weaponry, with guns. And to take a proactive approach where these states have these red flag laws to take the guns away from that individual, at least temporarily, not necessarily permanently. And it's not a criminal action, it's a civil type action where a judge is going to be provided with credible evidence to issue an order for police to go and confiscate guns. It's kind of a search warrant is what it is, to prevent a Uvalde from happening, or a Parkland. And this law does not exist in Oklahoma, but interestingly, it does exist in a couple of red states. One of them is Indiana, and the other is Florida, of all places. And officials down there in DeSantis' world have come to the conclusion that this has helped. This red flag law has helped prevent serious consequences. So, with that background, I wanted to get your ideas about how teachers could communicate with their sheriffs about this. Maybe they already are. I know in Osage County, where I live, we have a sheriff here who's basically a Second Amendment sanctuary sheriff, and he's anti-red flag laws, as is our legislature. But this is a rural and urban issue that I've got to think, even as a former prosecutor, which I am, that this would be a rallying point for folks across Oklahoma to come together and say, this is a tool in the toolkit that can help prevent the next school shooting in this nation. And Oklahoma, like any other state, is vulnerable to another Uvalde. And I've just got to think that there's some political pathway for bringing a law where it exists in Florida. We could take that law potentially and slap it down on the desk down at the House and Senate, Oklahoma City, and say, hey, boys, why don't we do what they're doing in Florida, where DeSantis is the governor? What are your real objections to this? So with that, those are my comments. Sorry, I went a little bit long, but I just asked for your perspectives on that, please. Thank you.
Well, I sure appreciate those comments, and thank you so much for listening today. Educators, we're required to report anything that we do. And, once we have done that recording, you know, that is our first step in making sure that we have people that are going to be safe, and then we have to trust that people are then going to pick up that information and continue to do good investigative work. For me, everything comes down to elections have consequences, and so you got to make sure that we elect people who think like you, that are using some good common sense and saying, we're not taking something away from you. We are actually making sure that people are being taken care of, and that for me, that's important. I want to see all Oklahomans taken care of. I want them to feel safe when they go to school, when they go to church, when they're going to the grocery store. Everyone deserves to feel safe. And I think we do all kinds of other things in our whole world to make us feel safe. And we can do those little common sense things that aren't going to infringe upon anybody's rights.
Right.
And I think that's important. That's that middle ground. I talk about being a dirt road Democrat, and that's that dirt road. I like to walk down the middle of it,
Right.
because there are solutions for everyone, and there are solutions that could work in one place and maybe not another. But this is a good common sense thing. Communication about safety issues is a win-win for everyone, because no one wants to see anything happen to anybody. We want to keep Oklahoma safe.
So I need to ask a question here real quick. Just raise your hand. Can you guys all hear me just okay on this Twitter space? All right, we're good to go. All right, one little piece of housekeeping. I know that there's a lot of people here that would like to ask a lot of questions. We are in a public location, and we just experienced that we can be a little bit disruptive ourselves in this public environment. So we're going to ask that people refrain from asking questions in person, but actually put it in writing so that we can convey those questions rather than having it blasted from my phone so that all the people around here can hear what's going on and disrupting what they're doing, because we're in a coffee shop and there are other people that are trying to enjoy their time. So I apologize if that inconveniences anybody, but please bear with us since we are in such a public place. So I kind of got to refocus and get back to Jena Nelson. You had a very interesting campaign. I don't want to rehash very much of it, but I do want to touch on some of the high points. Number one, you being encouraged to run. That seems to be that had to be one of those very stressful events for your life, because it's like, oh no, what am I getting myself into? But also at the same time, very uplifting, because you've got all these people contacting you and saying, Jena, you're the person that we want. You are the person for Oklahoma. You're such a great ambassador for public schools. We need your voice. Please run for superintendent. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I will always say that I was probably the most reluctant politician that ever had run, and I don't even think I'm really a politician now. I'm just Jena. I'm an Oklahoman that loves the state, and for me, it was watching my colleagues suffer a lot, watching them leave the profession, and some people probably feel maybe a lot of pride when they have somebody ask you. For me, it was terrifying, because I'm a person that I'm honestly kind of a hermit. I love my chickens and I love being in my gardens and things like that, and so I knew that stepping into that particular race, which was already high profile, it was already, I knew it was going to be negative and nasty, and it was going to put my young family through a lot. And there's just part of you that realizes that, you know what, if not you, then who? Right? Exactly. And there was one day I was in a conference, and there was a speaker, and she was talking about her experience about whether she was going to, she was going to accept the role of being National Teacher of the Year. And she said she went to her Bible and she flipped it open and she opened it up to Esther 4:14, which is, very, just so prophetic for her. And when she started talking about it, she looked directly at me and I was like, no, I'm not listening to any of this because I've already said no several times to people. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to run. And then there's a moment where it clicks with you. And when she said, perhaps, you were chosen for such a time as this. And I realized that, you know what, I might not win. I'm not, who am I? I have no political clout. I'm not rich. I'm basically a nobody, but I care profusely about the people of Oklahoma. I love education. I love our students. And if nothing else, I was going to get an opportunity to meet people, to listen to them, and then tell them the truth about what's going on in education, about how, people are changing lives every day. They're not indoctrinating people. They're not indoctrinators. They're not groomers. They are people who are living paycheck to paycheck and basically just giving everything they have, their time, their money, their health, to make sure that our kids have what they need. And I thought, if I have an opportunity to just say that, it'll be worth it.
Right.
And I didn't know, honestly, when I started, I didn't have a dollar to my name. I didn't have big backers. I don't have these big hats or anything.
Right.
I just had a few people who believed in me, and then I started just talking, and I talk a lot, as you know. I talk a lot, but I love talking to people, and that's how we started. We went from town to town, place to place, and we listened. And my team and my campaign, it absorbed. And we realized that we got to keep going. We've got to find that next $5. We've got to find that next $22 because these people here in Wayne, Oklahoma, and Walters, Oklahoma, and Sealing, Oklahoma, are counting on us and counting on us to tell their stories. And that, even though I did not win, I will tell you, it was the greatest privilege of my life to share those people's stories.
Winning or not, your impact is already felt, though, Miss Jena. I will say, as somebody who just witnessed and got involved. I'm late to the show here, but I'm getting involved. I'm doing what I can. Just hearing your positivity. But this goes back to even last week, our conversation with Chief Gray, which is, again, I want to reiterate this: listen and act. Listen and act. I think that's so inspiring to listen to from Jim Gray last week to you, because it was successful for him in his run for chief of the Osage. But to hear you saying that again too, I think it's just that I would like for that to be a point that goes away in this conversation.
So let's talk just a little bit. I kind of jumped forward because before I wanted to talk about the campaign, I wanted to talk about you becoming Teacher of the Year. And let's talk a little bit. That was back in 2020. Kind of what was the events that took place prior to that? How did that come about?
Oh my goodness! I will tell you, it was one of the proudest moments of my life, the most unexpected moments of my life. But I tell you, a lot of people think that it's just a popularity content. I hear that a lot on the internet.
Sure.
That all the things. Oh, well, it was just popularity content. So let me tell you how it starts. First of all, if you're going to become the Oklahoma State Teacher of the Year, you're going to have to win your site Teacher of the Year. You have to win districts, and then you've got to then start applying for state. And that process is writing 7 to 8 essays on everything from pedagogy to profession to hot topic issues, and you send it in. Okay, you send it in to the State Department. Well, then they read over all of these essays. They have a committee that does this, and then they pick 12 out of all of the teachers that submit. And then you have to then go and have people come from the State Department in your classroom, and they are making videos and watching you teach and interviewing you, and then they call you up, and all 12 of us then have to go before an interview panel. And this interview panel consists of everyone from politicians to business people to media people to former state teachers of the year. And you do 2 sets of interviews. You go in one room with 12, do an interview. Go the other room, do an interview. I mean, it's rapid fire questions, so you've got to know your stuff. Then they'll take you into another room with everyone together. And just like Miss America, you're pulling a question out of a fishbowl, and you've got to get up to the podium and answer it in a time limit. And then they deliberate, looking over your packet and your
history and all the things that you've just done, and then they have to make a decision on who the state teacher of the year is. And it is something that you spend a year working on top of teaching in your classroom every single day. So it's a lot of work. It is a huge honor. It is something I never thought would happen to me. Like I said, I was sitting on that stage just like Minnie Pearl. I was just so proud to be there, thinking about what, I was the last one to be named at the state fair. I was just thinking about, what corn dog am I going to get after this? Because there's nobody they're going to call, my name on. And they did, and it was a shock, an absolute shock.
So, the family aspect of this, what kind of impact did that have to your family? This has got to be one of those moments where you look out, you see your family, and they got tears in their eyes. And,
oh my goodness.
At least that's what I have vision in my mind.
For state teacher of the year, oh my goodness. Well, my husband is also an educator at UCO, so he was extremely proud. And my son at the time was in high school. My youngest was still kind of in elementary school at that time, and my son was just in awe of all the cameras and things like that, and he was like, "So are we gonna get free food out of this?" And listen, the Nelsons, we are very simple people. We are very practical people, and if it involves food, we're very excited. So my youngest was, she's a little more skeptical about all this, and just wanted to go home because she'd been there since 8 o'clock in the morning. But they were extremely proud. Of course, it was already hard enough being a teacher's kid, and then you go back to school, and then your mom's a state teacher over here. So there was a little bit of ribbing, I'm sure, going there. But we are a small family, but we're supportive. We cheerlead each other. We laugh at each other. We give each other a hard time. But I love my family, and they have been so supportive, not only for that, but through the campaign as well, which got really kind of nasty and ugly sometimes. But they were my biggest cheerleaders. The days that I didn't want to get out of bed and hit the road because I was just exhausted from doing 7 events the day before. There they were going, "You got to get up. You got to go. People are counting on you." And that is something I will always be grateful for them. I know I put them through a lot. And if they hear this, I want them to know just how grateful I am.
Oh,
That's so wonderful.
Yes, and your mom has tears in her eyes. She loves you a lot. I do want to go ahead and go through a couple of these comments with you, Miss Jena. There are a couple left here. Debbie Burleson, I'm sure you're familiar with. She says, "I was going to comment what a great school class an SAS is. Wish all schools could have that same format. And my granddaughter went there, graduated valedictorian. She is now a junior at OCU, and she and all of her friends voted for you." So, yeah. Also, this one, Okie Political Memes, yes, says, "How do you?" Well, good. There's your answer, because he said, "What is your favorite Okie meme account?" But he also asked a question: "How do you plan on using your political capital moving forward?"
I don't know if I have any political capital. Here's what I know. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm just too loud. And I'm going to support people who are out there, who are pro-public education, who are out there doing the right things for Oklahomans. I don't know what my path is next. I have no clue. I don't even know if the people of Oklahoma want to listen to my loud mouth anymore. But one thing is for sure, I love my state. I love the people of the state. And honestly, I love all of them. I met a lot of Republicans and independents and libertarians out there that are just, they're just amazing people. And they deserve to have a government that is for all of them. Our campaign slogan is for all of us.
Right.
And that is 100% who I am. And even though I did not win, I'm still going to be for all of us. I'm going to speak out for every Oklahoman because I want our state. I want our state to be prosperous. I want us to have good jobs and a great education system. I want us to have great health care. I want us to be the energy leaders in the nation, because we have such a diverse amount of wealth here, the wealth of our people, the wealth of our culture.
Yeah.
I want our tribes to be celebrated and elevated because they are doing amazing things in our state for our people. And I want people from Broken Bow to Broken Arrow, from Sealing to Sayre, to have the same opportunities that they do in Texas and New Hampshire and all these other places, because, you know, by golly, in Oklahoma, we've got great people and we've got great resources. We need great leadership to make sure that we are growing and thriving as a state. There is no reason we should be at the bottom of anything. We should be leading. We are hard workers. We have a great work ethic. And this state deserves to have this kind of leadership that reflects the people that we have.
Amen.
So I've got a little bit of a comment, and then I'll give you a reaction from it. We went to the Putnam North rally that you and Joy and so many others were involved in, and it was such a joy on my part to be there. I got to see this little, tiny little lady get out there and just grow exponentially, and your voice was so amazing to hear the crowd actually get up and cheer up, and was, you know, just hanging on every word that you said, because that was just such an awesome experience. It was the best pep rally I think I've ever experienced, and I enjoyed it so much. And then you kind of go out and you see the Joy bus outside, and you became pretty good friends with Joy Hoffmeister. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you guys were hanging out quite a bit during the campaign at the very last. And what was that experience like, working with other politicians?
Oh, my goodness. I will tell you, well, I knew Joy actually when I was the state teacher here. You know, I had that whole year working alongside the State Department of Education. So, you know, I got to see the inner workings. And so that was another reason why I said, yeah, I'm going to run for state superintendent. I know the people, I know the folks. I you know, we can do this. I appreciate what you said. You know, I'm a little self-deprecating, but I've always said, you know, I don't know really much about running for office, but I can sure run my mouth. And I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about our state. And so, you know, it's nothing that I feel is pretentious. I go out and I speak from my heart. If I say it right, I say it right. If I don't, I don't. I am not polished in any single way. You know, there's not some kind of big machine that's behind me and kind of pulling strings. I mean, that's probably a reason why some folks, you know, I rub them the wrong ways, because nobody does pull my strings, because I'm just going to be who I am. But I will tell you about the people I met on the trail. We had some amazing candidates, and I just love going out and listening to them talk. I'd cheerlead them. I'd go to as many events as I could. I'd invite them along to my events as well, because it's important for people to hear everybody's points of view, and just listening to what they believed in their hearts. That was inspiring to me. You know, I was just, you know, watching all these people going, I love how this person, you know, talks about the issues of healthcare, and I love how you talk about the issues of, you know, building community. And they were inspiring to me.
Right.
They were inspiring.
I'm going to go back to Putnam North. I'm going to talk just a little bit. You were being announced, and I can't remember his name. He's a very good representative here in Oklahoma City.
Mickey Dollins.
Mickey Dollins.
Shout out to Mickey Dollins.
Yes, thank you for helping me with that. I sometimes get stuck on names, but Mickey is like 6'5", you know, 200 pounds, solid muscle. He's just a great country boy. You know, he's just somebody that you really inspire. You go out there, you stand next to him, and you're like, you know, maybe up to his chest high. I mean, and then he introduces you, and then I look away and look back, and I'm like, this girl's 10 foot tall. You are just such an awesome, your presence on the stage was so wonderful. It was just, you became such an awesome speaker. You know, like I said, I couldn't imagine you being in that situation day after day after day, and having to try to maintain that same enthusiasm day after day after day. but you did it, and that was what makes you such a wonderful politician, a wonderful person, and such a leader in Oklahoma.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'll tell you something. McCurtain County girls, we're just built different. But we're used to hard work and having to stand up and fight for everything that we possibly can get. And it's easy to talk. It's easy to get fired up when you know that there are so many people that are depending on you to lift up their voice. And so that's what drove I was exhausted. Every day I was exhausted, but you get around people like Nikki, who's out there and fighting for people at the Capitol, and then you look out in the crowd, and behind me there were all these kids from Millwood,
yes.
and you realize I'm not speaking for myself. This race is never about me. It's never about myself. It was about those kids that were standing behind me. It was about their teacher who was on their off day,
right,
once again up there working his tail off. And that's what pushes me, realizing that there are people who want to see change and that need people who are just regular folks that want to do the right thing by them.
right.
And that's what I had to do, because it was important to them. They were showing up, so I have to show up too.
And the band that was there, you talked about the Millwood children, they were absolutely fantastic.
Phenomenal. Shout out to Millwood. You guys are awesome.
They were wonderful. I was a band kid growing up, a band parent to all of my children. So when I was there in that facility, it was just so amazing to hear them as well. But I digress. We've got to get another shout out from Steve. He says, when you do run again, when you do run again.
I don't know, Steve.
He said he wants to do a meet and greet in Pawhuska. He'll open his office for you to do that. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, how about I just come out to Pawhuska and talk to you, and we'll just solve the world's problems.
Well, we got.
I don't know. Kevin, I don't know what my future holds for me. There were a lot of things that I learned. There were a lot of issues that need to be fixed when it comes to running in Oklahoma. A lot of things that need to be fixed within the Democratic Party in Oklahoma. And especially if you're going to run statewide. And so, there's a lot of groundwork that needs to happen. But I know one thing is that I will always speak up for Oklahomans. I will always be there for Oklahomans, whether it's behind the scenes, whether it's cheerleading candidates or cheerleading children across the state. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna try to do my best. But I don't know. I'm not going to promise anything because I don't lie. I said that on the debate. I'm going to say it again. I don't lie.
Right.
But I'm always going to be true to myself. I'm going to be true to this state. And I'm going to try to help as many people as I can in whatever capacity that is.
Just remember this. No matter what you decide to do, you've got a lot of people that will support your decision. And we will support your decision, whatever you choose to do. You have won us over. You've been a great ambassador. And just an overall great person. We've inconvenienced you to come out of your day and come down here and have coffee with us. And again, we're at Summer Moon in Edmond. It's a great facility. We got to give them a shout out because they really did open up their doors for us to be able to have this little round table over here in the corner. But they have served us very well. So Brittany here, we really give her a shout out. She's a wonderful individual. We're going to talk just a little bit because we've got to wind this down. We're kind of we want to give you an opportunity. Is there any topics that we didn't cover that you really are passionate about that you want to talk about now?
I've just been here all day with you talking about a lot of things. We've talked a lot about education, which I'm obviously very passionate about. I'm very anti-voucher still. We've got to make those investments right now. We are at critical mass when it comes to investing in our teachers and our education system. But we also need to start addressing straight party voting.
Right.
We absolutely have got to move away from that, and so that people can become more informed about their candidates. And I will say this: as Democrats, we have got to start reaching out more.
Right.
We have to. Our rural areas feel abandoned.
we've got to reach out there. We have got to start building more structures. We have got to start making this more welcoming to people as well. And we got to get fired up.
Yes.
We got to get fired up. And we can't wait. We have got to make sure that there is an infrastructure there for someone who's never ran for office like me.
Right.
And we've got to make sure that we get our Gen Z involved. We've got to make sure that we are reaching out and not just focusing on one or two things, but how we can bring so many others with different ideas to the table. We need to be a party that welcomes everyone, and we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure there to make sure that they all get sense.
We'll close by saying, Jena, it's been such an honor and a privilege. You're such a wonderful person. We
Yes.
love you to death.
Oh my goodness.
This has been such a wonderful hour. It's gone by in just a snap of
Yes.
a finger because you've been such a really good speaker with us. And we are so grateful to you. So thank you for coming to Coffee with Democrats and having this conversation with us. For those who are listening on here, next week we're going to be in Tulsa, and we're going to be meeting with Dennis Baker, he ran for for the Senate last time. So we're going to be meeting in person with him and having coffee with Democrats with him. He's a wonderful person. He's got a background in law enforcement. He worked with the FBI. He worked with investigating Al-Qaeda. He is just an awesome individual. So we're looking forward to that conversation. And then we've got somebody almost as big as Jena the week after that. Almost as big. And that's Adam Frisch from Colorado, who's going to be on Coffee with Democrats. So he's running against Lauren Boebert. So we're really looking forward to having that conversation with him in 2 weeks. And in the last 2 weeks, we're going to be working with Liz from Edmond Democratic Women. She's going to be on here, and we're going to talk about those nuts and bolts about how we can expand the Democratic Party and how we can get into the rural communities and things like this. And it's going to be a 2-part series with her. So we're really looking forward to the rest of this month. So please come back and join us with Coffee with Democrats. Again, thank you, Jena. You've been awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll talk to everybody the next time. Until then, please be safe.
That went so good.